Hi, welcome to the OT Tip of the Month. This month I wanted to share with you some information about fidgets. It is spring and we have kids that are starting to have some spring fever. So we want to talk about one option, which is to use fidgets, but we also want to make sure that you know and understand the difference between using it as a tool versus a toy and who it's most helpful for. So what's interesting as OTs is that we have used this as a tool, but there's a very small percentage of students that it really is useful for. The students that we've seen the most success with are students that have a lot of energy, tend to be kids that move around, that seek a lot of sensory information, and having something in their hands sometimes can be really helpful for them. Other students that we've found success with are those students that tend to be a little bit more on the anxious side. It allows their nervous energy to go somewhere and kind of get that out in their hands. Lastly, those students that tend to finish their work really quickly and get bored and then are disruptive or talking to their neighbor, using a fidget can be a tool to help keep them kind of quiet and focused while everyone else finishes their work. So really, fidgets can be either a tool and be really helpful, or they can be more of a toy. Of course, we want it to be a tool and be helpful, and we want it to be useful for a student to stay focused, to stay attentive. We want it to be something that is not disruptive. That's not the point of the fidget. And something to, that's more socially acceptable. So instead of poking their neighbor or touching everything on the table, they're using that fidget and kind of channeling their energy in a more socially appropriate way. The problem is that for so many kids, they become a toy. And that's when they are disruptive to themselves, to other people. We've certainly had teachers say, no, we just don't do fidgets in our classroom, which is totally fine. This has been their experience, is that they're more toys, especially when kids bring things to school that are really trendy or there's some novelty. Like years ago, it was fidget spinners. Lately, it's been like the little puppets. And so those kids might just be bringing it just because it's really fun. And that's fine. That's considered a toy. It really isn't a tool for learning. What's interesting when you take a look at the research is it's kind of unclear how helpful fidgets are or not. Right now, the research has really small sample size, meaning it's been trialed and the information is a very small group of individuals, and they're not doing the study for a really long amount of time. But what was clear in the evidence is with students with ADHD or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, if those students don't have an outlet for their energy, it can be counterproductive. So a fidget is one option for getting their energy out. Movement and muscle work is another option. We have done an OT tip on incorporating movement into the classroom. That really is a strategy that's more universal, as opposed to fidgets tend to be a little bit more specific for certain students that it works for. So our best practice tips for you. One is if you have fidgets in your class, to call them tools, not toys, or not even just fidgets. You can call it a hand tool for listening and learning. You really do want to set some boundaries and rules around using it. Oftentimes when we put a fidget into a classroom for an individual student, we will talk to them about a fidget agreement and kind of go through the who, what, where, when, why, and how. Who's going to use it? Where does it live when you're not using it? Why are you using it? Hopefully for attention and, paying attention and listening and learning. How are you going to use it? We teach them to use it underneath the table so that it's not up and they're not, pulling the putty out in front. They're, just kind of squeezing it in their hands. It can take some time to figure out what's best for a student. Here on the screen, you see some options that we've had some success with. Thinking putty or therapy putty has been a great tool for some students. Again, we want them using it kind of underneath their desk or their table. All of these things are quiet and they're durable. The stress balls that are more durable and thicker, as opposed to the ones that have liquid. The ones that have liquid or that you buy at the dollar store, those pop and make a big mess very quickly. So the one in the upper right that has the green and yellow and blue and red, those are little marbles that you can kind of move around. And then the bottom one with the hand, those are some acupressure rings that you can pull up and down on your finger that can be really helpful. And then one tool that we've had a lot of success with is this one that is a foam It's considered a hand foam exerciser, and there's different amount of squish. So this yellow one is really light, whereas the blue one is really heavy. With any fidget, you have to let the novelty wear off. Actually, any tool that you use in the classroom. It's usually about a week to 2 weeks to see, does this tool really work for my student? They need to learn those rules, and the teacher needs to give them feedback. So if something's not working, you kind of take it away, remind them of the rules, and then let them know when they'll be able to use it again, whether it's the next class period or the next day. But if after that week or 2 weeks, it really isn't working, it's probably not the right tool for that student. And then if you're working with an OT for a very specific student, you want to give them that feedback. If you're just triangling things in your classroom, that just doesn't become an option for that particular student because it's just not a good fit. So I hope you found this helpful to shed a little bit more light on this tool in your classroom, and I appreciate your time.